ones that glow in the dark, the ones that are metal.
Laura, this is yours.
Aaron's.
Okay, welcome to the Board of Selectmen's meeting of December 11th, 2019. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
They sell them everywhere, but I know the papers.
Okay, citizen statements and
Paper
petitions.
store has a crazy selection of cool ones.
None. Correspondence to the board, we have none. Consider setting dog fees.
Oh boy.
They're the cool ones that glow in the dark.
Okay.
The ones that are metal.
Huh?
Like kids. Oh, they just love
No. All right. Good evening. Doing well?
Hear me?
I think so.
You guys should have
Yep.
this chart. So, as you know, we passed the bylaw change to remove the fees from the bylaw. And I am proposing to raise the fees a little bit. They've never been raised. They don't really pay for the program to support itself if you include the ACO's portion of it. I did some research with other towns. I have a study done by town clerks, and on the chart you can see the different prices, fees, and how many towns that answered the study at least fall into those fee ranges. For our current spayed and neutered, we charge $6. That fee's never been changed. I'm proposing $10 for a spayed or neutered dog. Our current fees for intact dogs is $10. I'm proposing that go to $20. And our current late fees are $6. I'm proposing those be $15. There are some towns that do it by the month, for $5 a month, or so somebody who's only a little bit late would only get charged $5, but then if you're really late, it would be a much bigger.
And most towns charge over 20 based on?
It's all over the place, really, for late fees.
Do it again, it's what, currently 6?
It's currently 6,
And what do you want to set it to?
15,
One time?
one time. Hopefully to encourage people to register on time. It's a three-month window. Of course, these are just my suggestions. You don't have to follow them.
I mean, you did the research.
I did do the research. And then the kennel fees, currently a 4 or less is $30, but based on the new rate, a 4 or less I'm proposing goes to $50. We would prefer people with 4 or less dogs to register each dog, and if you do that, it's only $40. But if you insist on doing a kennel, it's $50. That's my reasoning behind that.
Okay.
For 5 to 10 dogs, I'm actually reconsidering that 100 and maybe making it 75. And then 10 or more dogs, dropping that to 100. It's currently 50. And that really only affects, I think, one kennel in town right now. That's all I have.
So does this go into effect immediately, or do we have to wait for the?
I would like it to go into effect for the new licensing period, so it would go on the census.
Which is fine, but we have to wait for the AG's office to approve our change first, right? Because right now, it's still in the bylaws.
Correct, it's still in the bylaws.
So these would be effective once they approved.
Right.
If we got it in time, we could do it.
Right.
Right, is that what you were just saying?
That makes
right?
sense.
I didn't mean to steal your thunder.
No,
on
that's-
that.
That we'd
Fine.
have to wait, or can we set a new fee in anticipating that the AG will approve it? We took it, we approved it at town meeting.
And what did the language say in the town meeting article? If you can just
We removed
removed
all
it.
references to fees. So right now,
It's in the bylaw.
So do we just say pending approval of bylaw change by the Attorney General's office?
Oh, you can do that. Because it relates back.
Right.
So I'll make a motion, dog fees spay and neutered from 6 to 10, dog fees intact from 10 to 20, late fees from 6 to 15, kennel fees, 4 dogs or less, 30.
No.
Yep.
Isn't it 50?
Well,
50.
that was-
It's currently 30.
I thought you said you were changing it.
It's
no, I'm
currently-
sorry.
Yeah, it's currently
sorry.
30, I'm
I'm
changing
sorry.
it to
Yep.
50.
I'll say to 50, and then you were gonna go 75 and 100 on the other two, right?
Correct.
5 to 10 dogs is 75, and 10 or more is 100.
Second. All in favor? Oh,
Oh,
wait.
sorry, pending
Pending,
AG's
yeah.
approval of the bylaw change.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Great,
Thank you.
thank you.
I think I'm the next thing to.
Oh, yeah, discuss early voting funding.
So, it's in the, not quite the dead letter office at the state. The House has approved and the Senate has approved.
Supplemental budget?
Yeah, the supplemental, but it really hasn't gone through yet. If it does, I did not budget for early voting for the presidential primary, which would be a 5-day period. I don't know the language, so I don't have a number for you right now. But if it doesn't make me open any hours other than my regular hours, I can probably handle it at the window with Peg, except for Friday, I would have to open a few hours. At the polls, though, I would have to hire 2 additional people for probably 6 hours. We're talking, I'm thinking we're talking $500 here. I don't believe, and I could be wrong, but it will be a mess, but I don't believe I'm going to rent a second machine for the presidential primary. I don't think the turnout will warrant me getting a second machine. We'll just feed them through the regular machine. Whereas this, in the state primary, I did do that, and I'm glad I did because we were very busy that day. But I don't think the presidential primary will be very busy.
So the, that surplus money was supposed to be swept into the rainy day account today, but they backed off of that because of progress. So if they don't pass it tomorrow, I think it's probably not going to happen, but
Okay, good to know.
they apparently have made progress today, so
Right.
there's
Yeah.
still hope.
We're still waiting. I personally don't care if it passes, but, but anyway, I just wanted to give you a heads up because I didn't budget for it.
Right. Okay.
And, we could also consider just using my current budget, and then I could ask for a transfer
Right.
at the end of the budget year if I need to, because it may get covered in my regular budget. Okay?
Great.
That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alan.
Interview and consider the appointment of Deborah Flanagan to the Local Historic District Commission as the Realtor representative. Come on up. Got to get used to the public meetings, right?
Do you have a resume with you to review, please?
Lonnie, you have it.
All right, so what brought you to be interested in serving on the commission? Someone asked you to do it, or?
I just lost a bit. Lifelong resident. I've had a interest in historical properties for a long time. I have a minor in art history, but geared more towards architecture. So I have a fairly, thorough knowledge of what's going on.
Right,
Yeah, so I just figured I'd get involved.
great. Good enough for me.
We've already talked.
Perfect.
There might be a slight dilemma here. So my real estate license is with her office. Is that an issue with me appointing her? Okay.
To this, right?
As long as we all know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I move to appoint Deb Flanagan to the Local Historic District Commission as the Realtor representative.
Term to expire.
Huh? Oh, did it say it on
Yes.
it? June 30, 2021.
Second. All in favor?
Aye?
Aye.
Welcome aboard.
Thanks,
Thank you.
guys.
Thanks.
Consider the appointment of Tracy Icardi to the municipal clerk position for treasurer collector.
No, new clerk in the treasurer clerk. So you may recall that we have been looking for a clerk in that department for a number of months. Interviews were conducted a couple of weeks ago, so an offer has been made and accepted at $19 an hour, which is approximately 80 cents less than we budgeted for 2020. Comes highly recommended.
That's the second round of interviews, right? We had
Correct.
someone originally.
We did. We had a candidate that we liked, but they took another position before we had time to complete the process.
Okay, then.
I move to appoint Tracy Icardi to part-time municipal clerk position for the treasurer collector at a rate of pay of $19 per hour at $15 per week, 15 hours per week.
Second. All in favor?
Aye?
Aye. Discuss marijuana host agreement, Noble Manna, Inc. Come on up.
So prior
Why
to...
don't you lead that off?
Sure. Prior to this meeting tonight, Cindy and I met with Bill Ambrosino, the planning board chair, as well, to talk about sort of our processing for issuing these host agreements and the licenses. As you know, the bylaw says that we are capped at 3 retail and then 3 for other purposes, manufacturing or otherwise. What we have been talking about the last couple of weeks is how we manage those as we get interest from parties. Right now, we have 5 parties that are interested. So just as a reminder, so there's 2 separate processes. One, the board is involved, which is these host agreements. So what we have been doing for all of the interested applicants is sending them a copy of the executed host agreement that we already did with Green Era, so that way they are all treated the same. And then they then still have to go to get a special permit or otherwise from the planning board, and that's a separate process from us. So met with Bruce now for a couple of months, since last fall, really. He is going to eventually have 3 different host agreements, but right now, in order to move forward in the process so that he can start with the CCC, he has reviewed the host agreement for Green Era. He has agreed to the terms that were in that, and so he is looking for approval, essentially, to move forward. There's not a copy of the host agreement in here, but we should get one. That you may recall, because it was only 6 months ago or so, that one provision that we added was the police chief had discretion to determine within the first contract how much staffing there would be for safety. That was the one addition. The rest is very standard, 3%.
And we're more than happy with those provisions. Moving forward, you know, this is the first step in like a multitude of different things and hurdles that you have to pass. The special permit process in your town is handled for traffic concerns and safety issues and most of the site plan type of review. So
Yes, probably.
this is the starting point. So with the host agreements, we'll acquire the building under Noble Manna's umbrella. We'll start the architectural drafting. Most of the site plan, we've been working on this for some time now. So most of the other stuff is in place to deal with planning board issues. So, but you have to go through the public hearing process. We have some traffic concerns on the site now, which we're going to remediate in that process. We just need to make sure that it conforms. One of which is dual entry into the facility. So we made a driveway a little further down the street. The grade and the sight lines are a little bit improved. And so those are the type of things we talked about in the past. So outside of that, the host agreement that's with Green Era that you signed in the past, which we're more than happy to provide our contact information and put it in there, is just for retail. We want to do cultivation on a small scale there and manufacturing on the site as well, but instead of confusing the issue, seeing that there is a measure of alacrity that needs to be it's warranted now to get things moving, we'll come back for our cultivation and manufacturing license, because where the dispensary goes in the building will dictate where we're going to put a kitchen. And when I say manufacturing, that's taking flower-based products and turning into extract and edibles and things of that nature.
So are we looking to approve this tonight?
Right, so we're looking for you, the motion should be to authorize me to execute an agreement based upon prior agreements, no things that we have agreed to in the past, so that they are all uniform when we send them out. There's no changes at all, because this is what we have been giving, and we'll continue to give. My guess is we will give out 25 before the year is out.
For the years out?
We have had 5 in the last, since town meeting, so.
Yes.
I just want to make one suggestion, if that's okay. Have you guys been signing the other ones?
I think we just,
I signed that one.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just, because if you had already been signing them all, I was just going to say, move to execute it, and then
Right.
you just have to come back. But if Kim's already signed them, then fine.
Doesn't, I mean, either way.
I mean, if we agree that it's got to be that.
Right, it's, right, no changes, exactly as it is, so that they are all the same.
Which of course we're more than happy with. We'll go to the next step, which is the outreach meeting, and then we'll apply with the planning board when we have a nice rough set of architectural draftings for the inside. So when we go through that kind of, what I imagine will probably be a fairly robust public hearing process,
Okay.
we'll be able to provide exactly what the internals are going to look like. But as you know, it's about 40 grand deep just to do that piece. So if you don't have a host agreement in place, you're putting yourself on a path that's hard to justify the costs.
Right.
So, which is why we wanted to start here and been working with the town.
I would anticipate seeing a host agreement on almost every meeting agenda.
Maybe more than that.
Yes, I would anticipate having 3 in January.
Mendon's just so popular.
Right.
Thoughts down there at the other end?
Huh?
So thoughts down there at the other end?
You know my thoughts. The 3% is crap.
You do remember that.
If we can't even make a list of what the residual effects are, how can we charge for them? But, yes, I
But
feel free to enter into all the agreements that we can.
Luckily, we did not include anything that's outside of the basic realm of 3% of public safety, like other towns in which they have been basically,
Look, I'm not saying we are. All I'm
I
saying
was gonna say.
is that we can't even justify that there's impacts to anything.
Correct.
Well, that's why they're limited in duration, and
Right.
you'll have a chance to relook at the issue 5 years down the road and see if there really are or what they are.
No,
Right.
fair enough.
I think it's probably a preemptive, that's probably what they thought is allow, 3%, and down the road, if there's really no cost, then
Then enjoy the 3% now while you have it.
Right.
You're getting the 3% on the excise tax on it too, so it's
No,
fairly lucrative for that.
I know. Just coming from a business owner's perspective, that we're taxing to tax to make it somehow feel just a little bit better, to give it some warm and fuzzy feeling. It's a business, and it's, yeah, all right, I'm gonna stop, get off my soapbox, okay? Thanks,
It's your soapbox.
yeah,
so.
thank you.
What's the motion? To authorize you to execute?
I didn't, because I didn't know we were going to be making.
So that way, we're
That's okay.
basically gonna draft and change the
Authorize Kim to execute
host agreement,
host agreements based on existing.
previous, right.
All right, so I move to allow the town administrator to enter into additional host agreements on the base of the
Green era.
Green Era host agreement that we currently have.
Second?
Yeah, consistent with the terms of.
Thank
There you
you.
go.
Consistent with the terms of the Green Era host agreement.
So is that just for me, or is that a blanket for?
Just
All
for,
of them.
just for
It
you.
was a
Okay.
blanket, the way
It
you
was-
said
No, I thought we were doing it
That's not
for a
what you
blanket.
want? I thought you wanted to do it that way, so you could,
You can do it that
Well,
way.
oh yeah, that's up to you.
Instead
That-
of
Hold on, before, okay, as far as we're in discussion with this, That, the way I have just drafted, I just made the motion was that you can enter into anybody that comes in.
Yeah, see, I don't, which is fine, but I do think they should have to come before the Board of Selectmen, for each one.
Oh, absolutely, and I think that, but I mean, as far as you drafting the host agreement
Right.
and getting them prepared, and then, unless I'm misunderstanding the way it's done, we still have to approve this agreement, correct?
Not if,
No.
not the way you phrased it. You gave her the right to execute any agreement that was modeled on that.
I really think we should do
All
them
right,
specifically
let me
to each
amend that
one
then.
comes in, we use this, but I would leave here, I go and rewrite the contract with his name and
All right,
terms.
so I'm going to
and
make
then
it
I sign.
specific to Noble Manor.
Yes.
Correct.
Right.
And I think at the CCC's level, when they provide the affidavit that you have to sign off on, it has to be the executive body that voted on it.
Yeah, and again, I thought that we were still gonna come with each one, but I was doing it backwards.
Yeah, it's fine.
I understand.
I am bringing them all in here. I want you to know every single house on every street.
Understood.
Only in the properly zoned areas.
Well, I guess it's permit.
So, I'll just rephrase that, I move to approve that the town administrator can enter into a host agreement modeled off of the Green Arrow host agreement with Noble Manor, Inc.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Great.
And then, in about a month, we do have some drafts for the cultivation and manufacture. Would you prefer that I do those separately or all rolled into one?
Separately.
They separate host agreements?
Are the individual
They
licenses?
can be, it's kind of a hodgepodge. A lot of them, like, everything's rolled into one, but manufacturing is something that we probably pursue first. Cultivation is probably down the road.
Do
but it's
they have to be
different
separate?
language.
No, you don't have to have them separate, and you can also amend your existing to add down the road. We've done that.
Okay.
I do think you'd need to keep, because of the way the
They're in
language
different
is, to
categories.
keep, but the cultivation and the manufacturing are in one category.
But is it gonna take 2 licenses or 1?
I think it is one.
Nice. Let's do that.
If it is, if it's not, there are two separate license pathways for the both of them, the
You can have one
CCC.
agreement for both.
Oh, sure.
Let's do that. That way it only
There
takes
you go.
1.
I'll work on that.
Yeah.
All right.
That's what we've done in other systems.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You?
See you soon.
Thank you.
Okay.
Consider solar pilot agreement with BWC Muddy Brook LLC.
Okay. So
Oh,
prior to this meeting, you can come, you guys.
oh yes, sorry, come on.
Prior to this meeting, we had a very productive working with all of the members of the Board of Assessors and the Principal Assessor, in which they presented some data in their concerns about changes to the regulations, basically around these solar projects and the valuation of them and how it's determined and et cetera. Blue Wave, as you know, was at the town meeting, and they've been here before. They have structured their current proposal based on the other 3 that we have executed, and they have used the same sort of financial modeling in order to bring in a cost that they think is in the same ballpark as those projects. The Board of Assessors got information from their consultant, Paul Capinos, about the valuation for the project, and he's about $10,000 higher than Blue Wave's current proposal, but that's just data we got this afternoon. So I've asked Patrick and Jackie to go and analyze the data they got from Paul Capinos in the break and come back to you to explain the differential between their proposal at 23 and Paul Capinos at 33. And let's see how they did on their math.
Pop quiz, yes. So Patrick K.
We didn't give them any calculators either, we made them do it.
So thank you for providing this, and thanks for hearing us on this. Yeah, I think we were able to decipher a few things on here. So that's really helpful. And I know when we talk kind of the numbers, and 10,000 is accurate on a yearly basis. We kind of do pilots on a dollars per megawatt DC, which then you just multiply that by 1.7 to get to the 10,000. So the delta is about $6,000 from. Oh, sorry.
I just want to give them a copy of the data that we got this afternoon.
Oh, great. Okay, sure. I'll hold on.
They should have
page of the Blue Wave packet in front of you has their data. So if you flip to that, it has their map, and then this will be the comparable map from Paul Capinos that came in today.
Excuse me.
This is what David had, this is the code they had been trying to find.
Thank you.
Okay.
And the assessors weren't coming back?
I guess not.
I just was asking if the assessors aren't coming back.
Okay,
I didn't see their vehicles out there.
okay, well.
Okay. Yeah, we have, I think we have identified where the deltas are in this.
great.
And it helps me actually feel even better about our proposal.
Oh, good.
So I'll point, I'm happy to go through the whole thing, what theirs, but I think I can narrow it down to 3 main points for the reasons for the differences.
Okay.
One is in, and I'll refer to the consultant's page here. We noticed that the lease line item, they use slightly different line items, but the lease line item here is 0.
Okay.
And I think maybe that is part of what might have been messaged and maybe some confusion around lease rates and the fact that a Blue Wave entity purchased the parcel under which this array will be built.
Okay.
There will still be a lease rate. There will still be a lease in place between that entity that owns the land and the project.
So they put a 0 in for lease?
They put a 0 for there. So that's a $33,000 per year delta,
Okay.
which is meaningful to the, to naturally the cash flows of the project that are projected here. The other one, number 2, would be the tax rate escalation. We noticed in Mr. Capino's projection here, using a 4% per year escalator. We used a 0.98% escalator in our proposal. That was based on the 20-year average escalation in Mendon of not 0.99, and then saying, well, if there's some outliers in the 20 years, let's look at the more recent past, and the 5-year average was 0.97. So we just split the difference there and called it 0.98. So we don't think 0.4, and I think you guys, you just lowered the rates actually. So the 4%, I can see that as, it's almost a 3% per year difference.
Right.
Which when you compound that out 20 years, that is a very meaningful difference in the
Right.
valuation here, so.
Definitely.
So we used ours based on, historical data from the town of Mendon. So that's 2. And 3 would be the discount rate used. The consultant used 12%. We used 9%. In this case, the lower number is actually more punitive. And this was when I said we tried to get closer to the number that we had settled on previously, using 9%, which we do understand that most towns use a higher number. If we use that higher number, our proposal would drop down to under 12,000 per megawatt DC versus the 13,562. So, I mean, we're happy to use 12, but that would improve our proposal, I think. But we're comfortable with 9. We know we've done business with you guys a lot, and we tried to get it up to that number, but the projects are just not as economical as they once were back when we put those little projects into place. And that's, it's the design of the system to try to help propel renewables, but not at the highest level. So those are the 3 main reasons that that our numbers diverge from theirs. And I'm happy to answer questions, but those, hopefully there's sound rationale behind them.
I guess it's not a question for you folks, but I wish the assessors were here because I have questions on why would Paul Capinos use a 4% escalator or a 12% discount rate? I don't understand. There must have been a thought process behind using those numbers, which none of us here can answer, so.
So I can tell you that the main concern of the Board of Assessors really was about these changes that are going to be implemented and coming down the road, but they're not in effect now. And so we recognize that. Even the principal assessor said, fine with this one, but for future ones, we really should pay more attention to the changes that may happen. So I feel very comfortable based upon their data and what we have used before, and now especially that their numbers are closer to Paul's, who is the consultant on this, that we're executing something that is very comparable to what we've done in the past. There's no significant changes to it. It's really, it's $1,700 less than we got for the 2 previous agreements per megawatt DC, but overall, based upon what they're saying about the industry changing, I mean, they've justified the difference in cost. So I think if the assessors were here and they were here to see this math, they would agree.
Okay. Fine with me. Good?
Is there something we have to vote on
Think
tonight, or
we
can
are.
we get to make sure that everybody's on the same page?
We would prefer to move forward with it tonight because they're on a project deadline. So they just completed the purchase of the property, they're ready to go. We've got the input now that we wanted from the Board of Assessors. I think 2 out of 3 members of the Board of Assessors would be comfortable,
Okay, so.
but maybe one is coming,
I'll,
maybe.
You can't sneak up those stairs.
I mean, see?
There he
Perfect.
outstanding. Please come up.
You're right on time.
Hey, would you guys have bet the farm that I wouldn't have showed up?
Well, we were very concerned about
We were
you.
wondering why.
We almost just voted, by the way.
Yes.
Did you?
Almost missed your
Oh.
window.
Well, that's okay. That's okay. Okay, went back and did my homework and looked at the first thing I handled was the 0.5% issue.
So Ken, before you take the stage,
Take the stage?
I think it would be appropriate for you to hear the analysis that Blue Wave has just done about Paul Capinos' numbers that were presented by the Board of Assessors and
Okay.
and the difference between their Blue Wave, and then we can hear.
Sure.
That way you know where the data points are.
Absolutely.
Okay,
I didn't know that you did that.
yes.
You do good work, Pat.
Thank you. Yes, we try to identify the big ticket items here in
That way we can
in
stay
short
in
order.
line about the numbers.
So I'll just repeat what I had said before, and that is there's three main reasons that are causing the delta here between our proposal and Mr. Carpino's. And that is, first would be the lease payments. And this might have been a result of what might be a misunderstanding regarding lease payments. Although although a Blue Wave entity did purchase the property, the project is still going to have lease payments. The project is going to have a lease with that purchasing entity, just the same way we would have had lease with the previous landowner. So lease payments are still fully part of the pro forma for this project.
You're right, they would be, because it was my understanding that Blue Wave was gonna buy it, and that there was no separation between Blue Wave and Blue Wave. So I agree with you.
Okay, so that's a big reason for the delta. The other one is the tax rate escalation assumption. The consultant uses 4%. The historical average in Mendon over 20 years is not 0.99, so less than 1%. Over 5 years, if you're looking near term, it's 0.97, less than 1%. We average that and use 0.98 as an escalator. I think in your math, you didn't even address the issue.
Well,
And
no, I
just put it
used
flat.
your point, 98.
169.
And, yeah, and then the only other issue with that would have been brought up in discussion, would have been any additional 2.5 overrides or debt exclusions.
Oh, small, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, like the school needs another couple of $1 million that, we wanted you to participate in that.
So the one, I'll call it 1%, the 0.98 versus the 4 is a very big delta. And again, I think you actually mentioned today that it went down to 16.75. So
Right.
it's trending in the right direction relative to the 4% assumption. And the last one would be the discount rate. The consultant uses 12%. We actually use 9%, which actually increases the pilot proposal. If we did not use that, if we used 12%, our proposal, rather than being 13.5 per, 13,562 per megawatt DC, it would come down to 11,994 per megawatt DC. So the pilot would actually be a lower recommendation from the consultant. So happy to elaborate.
I'm sorry?
I was happy to elaborate.
No, that was good. Very good. Thank you very much for bringing me up to speed on that. That was really good. So I guess that I did go back to check my one half of 1%. I'm right. I'm right, because if I did it your way, it would be 50%. So it's still 0.005 is my point. Anyway, that's just here nor there. And I spent 20 minutes calculating it out because I believe you when you said, "Oh, that's the wrong number." Okay, but I believe it to be right. But
All right, so.
we could wrestle over that later. Anyway, so here's the bottom line that comes in, and that is that in my rush, I did forget to put something back into here, and that was the idea of the lease payments. I took the land out, but I didn't put back in the lease payments. So anyway, I guess the bottom line is that however you want to look at this, I think that with the changes that Paul was only brought in on this afternoon. We should have brought him in earlier to make sure that we were all up to stuff on this, but you know, hey, we didn't. And I think we really should bring him into it because that's what we pay him for. And he is the expert. He's done hundreds of these things. He's the guy, if you weren't told, and I apologize if you were told, but Paul, our consultant, had a meeting with Pam Hunt, who's the director of the DLS Law Center. Mm-hmm. She's the chief of the Bureau. And they're working on, they know that the way pilots are being written, they don't like it because it's not working out for the towns. They want to come up with more definitive rules about these things. And, you know, hey, if we're not going to wait for DOR to do it, we're getting the impression that that's a top priority of hers, is to fix this, okay? So then the next thing would be, hey, we need to bring Paul in. So if you didn't like that one, the next one is just going to be, we need to bring Paul in.
Well, wasn't Paul involved with the original, when we our first?
He was involved with the original, and then again after the fact when they were changing how they should be valued.
Yeah, and then the next one, he was brought in for the school one.
Right, mm-hmm. Yep.
And we didn't follow that either.
So, hold on. Based upon what numbers you're showing here, and based upon the number, did you just say it was $33,000 a year difference for not having the lease in there?
Paul's...
No,
yeah.
sorry.
I'm sorry, it's asking Pat.
You're talking about his current one?
I'm saying to you is, you told me that there was, you said earlier, it was $33,000 a year should be in the lease line.
Mm-hmm.
That's right, okay. That's right.
So
$33,000 a year in the lease line?
That's right.
So the solar company is going to rent it from the landowner for $33,000 a year.
That's right.
Wow, that's cool. I didn't pick that up. Sorry, I wear hearing aids, and I sometimes don't pick up all the words.
It's okay. We talked about it before you.
Yeah, capture that.
So $33,000 based on that there's no lease money in here, and I'm assuming these numbers in this column are annual.
Well, I can help.
Yes.
I'm going to throw that off that it'd be 15,000 to the good, just using simple math. Or is there some sort of percentage that's used?
No, whose one you looking at? Mine?
Yes.
The big one is, this big one that you could read without glasses is mine.
Mm-hmm.
I do not have the lease in there at all. So if I was to put
$33,000 per year.
$33,000 in lease, well, that would really come off the other document that has their operating expenses. It wouldn't necessarily come off of here, because this is what the town's getting.
I think the key difference is between this and this is using an income method, which is consistent with what our proposal is and consistent with our prior pilots. This here uses a depreciation method, a cost and depreciation method.
If you add in the lease value that was omitted, how far off are the two, do the two come out? Or do you not know?
Well, they're kind of, in a way, they're apples and oranges, because this just says, how much did it cost you to put it in? It's, the lease rate isn't.
That's an expense.
Isn't part of it, but if the depreciation here, I think it should be $119,000 versus $11,900.
But when you do the math, taking it down, that gets you down to almost zero.
No, that's just the depreciation per year.
Yeah, I got it. So when you depreciate it down to year, what's the value of what's left of the value after I do all the depreciation? On mine, it's $2,163,000.
Right, but you started at
$2,380,000.
So you've only taken over 20 years.
$216,000 off of it. That's the 1/2 of 1% degradation of what the electricity is not going to produce because of the age of the product.
Right, but that's just degradation of the panels. The depreciation is the 20 years.
Well, again, now I go back to the function of what is depreciation. Are you talking IRS depreciation, or what is the depreciation in the line of an assessor assessing and putting value on something? There's a big difference in that.
What is the law state they use?
Funny, I called DOR last night and I got an answer, and they don't have that established on what is the depreciation. Is there a depreciation chart? And the answer was they didn't have one.
Well, no, that's not the question. The question is, what is depreciation? IRS depreciation or assessor's depreciation? That was what you just asked.
Yeah, in our life, it's assessor's depreciation. You know, what is, the assessor has to put value on it.
I understand, but in the law of how these are supposed to be written, I mean, look, I don't know the difference between IRS depreciation or assessor's depreciation. All I know is I can depreciate stuff, and I'm told how much I can depreciate by the IRS for my tax purposes.
Excellent.
As far as,
but the question
my
is,
house doesn't seem to depreciate because my taxes go up.
Yeah, it does. It does. And you help that.
I know, I'm only kidding. So I'm just trying to understand.
Still talking about personal property.
Yeah, we are talking about personal. So let's say you bought your truck, and you depreciated per IRS rules that allowed you to depreciate. Depreciation means that you're taking off of your tax bill.
Yep.
Value of what you paid for that car or truck over so many years.
Understood.
But now, at the end of that, I don't know, what is it, 5 years maybe? So at the end of that 5-year period, or maybe even 1 year.
I usually pull them 1 year, just use that.
Whatever it is,
Yep.
you still have that truck, and that truck still has value. Because if you really felt as if the truck had no value, I would really appreciate you giving me that truck.
So, I would agree with you on that. Truck's probably a really bad example to use, because that truck's gonna be worth nothing. Well, I mean, it's worth something, but when you go trade it in, or you try to sell it, and it's over a 20-year period, or whatever period you want to use, and these panels are actually, after 20 years, I am by no means a solar panel even close to knowing much about them, except that I'm pretty sure after 20 years, from what I understand, is that they're not worth so much after 20 years. Is that true, or is that not true?
They can be worth so.
Yep.
It's not to say they can't, but the program in which this facility operates is a 20-year program.
Yep.
So if there isn't a market for the capacity coming off of this plant, it will be taken down, and it will be,
What is the life cycle of a solar panel? Like, what's the life, is it, what's that?
The lifespan?
Yes.
Or life expectancy?
Yeah, of a panel. Like, when do they start to break down that they're not efficiently producing electricity anymore? Like, what's that?
So I would say that's between 20 and some some solar farms are still operating after 30 years.
No, not the farm. I'm
meaning
talking about
the-
the.
Well, I was using it synonymously, like, you're replacing some here and there, some go early, some go
Sure.
late.
Okay.
But usually the
20 to
lifespan,
30?
if there's a market that can last past the 20 years, it can be up to 30 years.
Okay.
But because we don't have a facility in place, we don't have the contract through the SMART program in Massachusetts, and that's a 20-year program.
Got it.
So we have done our pilots elsewhere. To the extent you use the cost and depreciation method, we could use the IRS method, and that's a 5-year depreciation schedule, which would make payments even much lower. And he raised the point of saying, but in 5 years, this isn't going away. And I said, that's fair, understood. Our program is 20 years, and we've used using the depreciation method, a 20-year depreciation method, which is counter to what the consultant has provided for you, but consistent with this one here. If you use that, and
What did they use on the consultant side?
they use the income-based approach, which is
Oh,
basically taxing net income. This is basically taxing the cost and then the depreciable base thereafter. So they would come in,
So
I'm confident it would come in even lower than our proposal here as well.
Fair enough, I understand what you're saying. What I'm trying to understand is that we have 3 different
Well,
pieces of paper here that.
really only have 2, right? Because, so Ken has done, he's done a couple of things of analysis. This is his personal analysis.
Got it.
This is from the Board of Assessors consultant, right, for comparison, and then we have Blue Waves. They're totally different methodologies, right?
So by the way, let me also throw in there that Ken's has validity to it.
Correct, but,
Ken's been doing this for 10 years, and I am an accredited assessor.
correct.
Okay, so,
But
but for
the
me.
apples to apples is the Capinos and the Blue Wave.
But it's not apples for apples. They're 2 completely different ways of doing it.
So this is why.
Oh, no, sorry, let me correct that. This one here by the consultant is the same methodology used by the one in our proposal.
Right.
Correct.
The one that we started
This to
discussing
this.
and had discussed before Kim.
So yours is a different
There are
method.
3 different types of methodologies to use. Income,
Correct.
the value, and then market approach. So, do you know that Blue Wave has sold off the one at Varney property? Amoresco owns it. I know theoretically it doesn't have anything to do here, except they sold it. And they sold it, it had a value. The value was never diminished to the numbers that we're talking about tonight. That's my point for bringing it up. It's because there's value to it.
So-
The value is what we establish.
But we don't use market value of what somebody pays for something to determine anything. If somebody came and paid. No, we don't.
For our taxes on.
For property taxes?
We're not talking about, so we look at what something is sold for?
Excuse me,
And we're not looking at property.
if,
So if Blue Wave sold it and it didn't, if Company A buys it from Company B and they paid X, and X wasn't where it was expected to be in depreciation, well, that company either was foolish on what they paid, or I don't understand how it even equates into.
it does equate, because the values that Paul's coming up with, the values that I'm coming up with, are higher than the values that Blue Wave has.
Well, Paul's
And
has missing
all I'm telling you is,
information.
don't be quick to diminish them.
Right, but Paul's numbers are different and are missing
Okay,
pieces.
great. So here's what I asked earlier in our meeting. Instead of having, going for a signed agreement tonight, we're asking to please postpone it. Allow us to find out what DOR is doing, number 1. Number 2, to bring Paul Capinas in, our consultant, have meetings with him and iron it out.
So did the Board of Assessors ask Paul Capinos for this?
Yes, they did.
So why didn't it happen before? Why did the board just ask Paul Capinos for this? Knowing,
There's a long story to that, but we don't want to go over it now.
well, it just seems strange to me. but-
No, not really, because I've been involved in this from the beginning,
But to reiterate, Patrick has clarified the differential between Paul's numbers and their proposal. They did the analysis so that their numbers are more in line now. I mean.
Pat here has had a long time to go over his numbers. Capinas only had 4 hours today to do this. And we're asking for,
Pat just
the other guy's Paul.
Pat just saw Capinas' numbers today.
Right.
Okay, say that again?
Pat just saw these numbers today.
Correct, he did. But Capinas only created them today.
So we're just supposed to say, well, Capinas must just be all completely messed up. Why would he submit something if he wasn't confident in it?
It's all screwed up.
No, I know, that's what I'm saying, I don't either. So he obviously submitted this to us, confident that this was his analysis, and
Okay, then the Board of Assessors' recommendation is to go with Capinas' numbers then.
But we can't,
Based on the wrong numbers.
they're off by a lease agreement, they're off by a different percentage of almost
Okay,
3
then we
points.
respectfully request that you guys to allow us to get it
Right.
ironed out.
Which is fine, I'm okay with that. I'd be more apt to make a motion that approves this once Capinas and their numbers look, if they need a minute to talk about it, the way it looks.
And just to clarify, the Board of Assessors didn't make that recommendation earlier in the meeting. Are they making it now? Because you're the only representative here in the Board of Assessors.
Let me ask you this. As a resident, and you gentlemen up there are going to make a decision on accepting and signing an agreement. What agreement you want to sign? I know which one I would ask you to sign. My agreement, the one I came up with. Use my numbers. But if you don't like my numbers, okay, great, wonderful. Capinas is greater of an expert than Ken O'Brien is. I agree with that. Use his number.
not based on these incorrect numbers.
Numbers.
Then I ask you to hold off. And if Blue Wave is concerned about staying on track with their schedule, they can start construction. You won't start construction without it?
We cannot get financing without having all agreements wrapped up.
Okay, well then, would you be willing to allow a couple of weeks to go by until this is,
I would prefer not to do that, quite honestly. I mean, we've been working on this for quite some time. I feel very confident in.
okay. As one of your assessors and a ratepayer, I can only speak for me. I would like you not to approve Blue Wave's request.
Okay.
So is this a
So-
Excel?
So one of the
Spreadsheet.
things I was gonna recommend, because it hasn't been done, is maybe it would be helpful for Patrick to go through their numbers and how they actually come to the determination of I don't know if you wanna know.
Look, right now, what I see on paper, okay, and this means something to you, and I can look at my stuff that I do, and I'm like, yeah, I can see it right here, why can't you effing see it? Right, oh, this is yours, right? And this is Paul's, and I have no, Paul can look at this and tell me exactly what he's looking at. Ken, you can tell me what yours says. I don't know what yours says, right? What I need, what we need as a town is for Blue Wave and Capinas to get these numbers to jive, right? We have a hired consultant, and granted, I know what you're saying about you.
I agree with you.
And you guys know what you're doing, because this is what you do every day, right? This is just, I feel like this is, we're again, just stuck in mud over something that, it's just a misunderstanding. There was a few numbers that are missing here. I would approve this based upon you guys getting with Capinas tomorrow and working these numbers out and make sure they're right. If we don't come to an agreement, then you have to come back. That's my opinion. Because Capinas is hired, and I'm sure that if he's done a bunch of these, he's worked with Blue Wave before, or any of these other people, that you guys are gonna be able to have a quick conversation to hash these numbers out. And if we're talking about that within Yeah, if it's off by $10, keep on trucking, right? I'm just saying, we should be, if we're off by $100,000 per year, well, we've got to sit down and hash that out. Again, I'm asking people to use a little bit of just judgment and common sense on where that number may be, if you understand what I'm saying.
I think that's fair, and I think that it's gonna work out fine. But what I will say, so that you're not panicking, is that I think we're gonna have a meeting next week. So, because we.
I'm saying approve it. If I'm saying.
Pending they can, but if the number, let's just assume.
Okay,
I mean,
let's assume the worst.
Right, let's assume it's off by $5,000. I mean, what is the level of discretion that you're gonna allow for it to go with, like a percent, that's where I'm saying it's gonna be
Yeah,
tricky.
I don't know what that
because you
is, but I
don't
mean,
know
if it's.
until you see
if
it.
it's-
Fees is off by 10 grand, according to, is higher than Blue Wave by 10 grand.
Right, but after he made the adjusted calculations, they're much closer than that. So,
I think they're going to come in lower, to be quite honest, so.
yeah, their numbers are gonna come in better. So I think, same thing, make the motion pending that we get a
I mean, it's a
follow-up.
no-brainer if they come in lower.
Right, they get a follow-up from here, and assuming that there's no issues, then it's passed. But if there is an issue and we have to come back, we'll add it to next week.
Yeah, and all I can really ask is
The
that
week after,
if we're doing another one of these in the future, let's get way ahead of this. Like, I feel like you guys should have already been here. And if it's
I've been
our fault-
trying to get here.
You were here, you were here at the last meeting.
Yeah, I've been trying to
But
get
you're
done.
here as Ken. You're saying we have a paid consultant to do this stuff, that we're paying him to do. Get him here. This is the guy that we need to.
He has not been on the payroll to do that. He'd have to be on the payroll.
Do
we have someone available? Yeah, we do.
Wait a second. It was just stated a few minutes ago that he is paid to do this.
Yeah.
By whom?
By us. We would have to pay him.
No, you said he was already paid to do this.
Oh, no, sir.
That's right.
Misunderstanding.
Can I just ask
Cindy,
a
there's a
question?
lot of that.
I'm sorry, sir?
There's a lot of that.
Yes, and I hope that none of it
You know
comes
what,
from
but the
us.
misunderstanding is generated, okay? This is silly.
Cindy, go ahead.
I was under the impression, from what I heard, that the assessors hired Capinas to do an analysis, and that this was the board's expert's opinion. That's the impression I was under, based on the meeting I sat through. Now, if that's not the case, what is this? Is this a gratuitous thing he did as a friend to the board? I'm just trying to understand, because my understanding was that was an official.
Oh, that's what
We
I
asked
thought.
him today. Gene Berthold asked him today, got a hold of him today,
Here's the-
asked to have that
here's
done.
the email from today.
And he was able to produce that within 4 hours. And yes, I do.
Did the board vote to accept this, or did the board have?
No, we have not had any discussions on that. That's why I'm asking our Board of Selectmen.
So you wait till the last minute, as a board, to
No.
ask for this.
No.
You wait for the last minute to ask for this from Paul today. Is this not true?
Yes.
Yes, that was done today.
Okay, and then,
Okay.
so, I can't even make a motion to have them get in touch with Paul, because Paul is not, I mean, maybe he'll do it out of the kindness of what he does for us, but Paul was not hired, he was asked to put this together.
He is our consultant on things that we do. That is out of the scope, but he would do it. Just like he did it for the school, when the school put theirs up.
Okay?
There was disagreement on that. And the disagreement was such that we got to go out for an independent guy to handle it.
Okay, so, but if I make a motion to approve this based upon people getting in touch with Paul Capinas tomorrow to make sure these numbers jive, and Paul doesn't want to answer us, then what do we do? I'm not saying he won't, but he's not hired to do it.
He could be leaving the country tomorrow.
I don't even know what you're asking him to look at. What's the number that you want him to
I think-
approve?
I don't want him to approve anything. I want him to take a look. Blue Wave is saying that based upon the numbers that are missing on here, that if Paul puts those into his calculations, they're gonna come in lower than the discrepancy that they're off by. So we're off by +10 right now, they're gonna come in at -1, right? Is what I'm hearing. Okay? Based upon what he's seeing and where Paul's numbers are different. So if Paul says, yes, I didn't have those numbers correct in here, you're right, it is gonna be -1. Well, now we know that we're -1 ahead of the game, is what I'm saying. But we've got numbers from our consultant, who's not here to discuss, defend, or object to the comments that are being made.
Right.
And we decided to do this today, is what I'm saying.
Right, wasn't paid to do it.
Today.
It was not.
And wasn't hired to do it, did it because he's our consultant and would do things like that. Just like as the consulting I do for the town, I would do it the same thing, right? All I'm saying is that we have numbers that don't jive. We just need an answer on that. Okay? And but I'm also willing to say that we're so close. I put trust in you. I put trust in what these guys are telling us, that if it's off by 10 grand and we can't come to an answer on that, well, then we've got to come back here next week. That's the case. And I can't consciously, if everything jives, yeah, I want you to get moving right away. I know exactly what it's like to be held up. Trust me, I do. And I don't like holding up anybody. I'm more of a how can we help you than no, right? That's just how I am. So I would like to make a motion on this, that we're going to approve this host agreement with Blue Wave pending discussion.
Pilot agreement.
Huh?
Pilot agreement.
Pilot agreement, sorry.
You changed their business.
I know, sorry. Yeah, we don't need that.
I just have one question, because I'd love to, during this exercise, isolate the items that we're talking about. And we're going to be talking about solely this methodology and this method,
It'll be the
correct?
same.
We're not going to bring in the others that have been performed. I just want to make sure that,
No, look.
I don't care which one it is, I just want to.
Listen, I don't want, look, for the purpose of this, what has been submitted was that the assessors asked Paul to do the assessment, right? This is gonna be between you and Paul. Asking as somebody to do a favor, I would like to understand what Ken did better myself, so that I understand what I'm looking at the next time. Now, that doesn't mean me and Ken sitting down. I'd like for Paul to take a look at it and say, and make sure that what you have, I'm not saying your numbers are wrong, but we're just shooting from the hip with that. And I trust what you're putting down, but I don't understand it. I don't understand any of the numbers of how they come up with it. But if we're gonna ask, so anyway, like I said,
I guess I would ask you one question. What would you do for overrides? Any kind of overrides?
What does that have to do?
What'd you say?
What does?
I don't know. What would you normally
I'm
do?
asking them a question.
What would you normally do?
I don't know, I've been asking you, yeah.
I don't know. What would you normally do? How do we know? We don't have any overrides.
We've had overrides in the past.
Can I make a recommendation? So to your point about whether we can reach Paul or not.
Yes.
Make the motion you were gonna make, an attempt to have me, Blue Wave, and Capinos verify the numbers in Blue Wave's proposal, right? And if there's a significant issue and it's more like within that 10,000, then we'll come back. And if it's not and it's minor, small dollars, then we'll execute. And then they won't have to come back.
The most this is gonna wait is a week, at the very most.
Right, so if there is an issue, my guess is that Paul Capinos will run the numbers, they'll look at Blue Waves, he'll make the adjustments, they're gonna come in very close, and there's not an issue, right? But if he doesn't answer the phone for some reason and we can't reach him, then, who else do we go to verify? So that's.
But real quick, back to what ifs. What if, so right now, what we're saying with the pilot is that the numbers to stay across the whole time, right? What if the taxes go way down? Do we give them money back?
As you and I clearly know, the taxes, the rate is what fluctuates. Values fluctuate. The total tax bill doesn't fluctuate. It only goes one way, up.
Yeah?
So, there you go. So, the law says that this agreement is for the function of balancing out their tax bill over 20 years, balancing out the tax bill.
Okay?
Not issuing anything else. It has to be fair and equitable for the same as every other business and homeowner in town.
What, at the time that you issue it? I mean, once it's issued, it's issued. So you only can go on the data that you have. You can't play what ifs.
Oh, you're playing what if on the whole agreement? Because what are you basing it on?
You're basing it on on an assumed increase.
There are an awful lot of variables in there, in that
Right,
agreement.
but there's a calculation.
I know there is.
So what, do you want to change the calculation?
No, sir, I'm just letting you, no, because I said that there are multiple methods of calculating the value. And we're only using one.
What are we
which is-
supposed to use for a pilot? Which one? Is there a single one? Or do we everybody just guesses and makes this stuff as they go along?
Yes. That's what happened.
Well, then I guess
And
we're gonna
Department of Revenue told us that they would like to work on ironing it out so that every town is sequential.
Okay, so once they iron that out, we'll go with that method. But right now, we're gonna go with the methods that we have in front of us.
You've got to get the penis involved.
Absolutely.
Let's make the motion.
So, I move to approve the pilot with Blue Wave on the condition that the discrepancy in the numbers get worked out between Blue Wave and Paul Capinas within the next week. If not, we'll be back here.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Do you want to pay him?
Who?
Capinos.
If he requires it, we'll have to figure it out.
Okay, just,
Who is hiring him?
well, typically the Board of Assessors to hire him to do their consulting work, but we could hire him for this particular.
Right, but I, at the same time, I do want, they're the assessor's consultant. I want the assessors to be understanding of what he's saying with his paperwork as well. If that's what was asked, the assessors asked him to do that, and that's what we're gonna use for our paperwork, then everybody needs to just be okay with the fact that Paul put that paperwork together. I don't want any influence from us on.
Correct.
It needs to be right. And if we have a slight discrepancy, let's fix it. If
mean-
he says, no, I disagree with that, well, then we're gonna be back here in a week, he needs to come here, and we need to know why.
Right. I'm sure he can plug in the different numbers into whatever program he's using here, and it will change it across the board
a copy of that?
to be what it is, so.
Which one, do you want, Paul's?
I'll make sure I get it to Paul.
I think.
Yeah, please.
What was that?
That is Paul. That's Paul.
That is
He has
Paul's.
that.
That's what do you want?
Talking about Blue Wave.
Oh, so I wanted Blue Waves with all the notes on it that you want to talk to Paul about.
Well, he can talk to Paul about it.
Oh, I don't have anything with notes.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
They're gonna.
Then you're just gonna handle it
We're
with
gonna have a
Paul.
conference
Yes.
call. That's probably gonna be
conference
me
call.
They're just
and
gonna handle it with
Patrick
Paul.
and Paul and whoever else wants to be on the
Handle it with
call.
Paul
That's
direct.
how we're gonna do it.
good.
So we're
I
all,
will start the
Kim will be in
emails tonight
touch with
yes,
you tomorrow.
we'll wrangle it tomorrow.
that he's
Will be available.
on board with
Thank
this.
you.
Okay?
Thank you. And again, I want to make sure everybody's on board with this.
Yes.
Not just Paul, not just, because, look, like I said, I'm believing what people tell me, that people are being honest. And that's maybe a downfall for me, but I trust what people are telling me. From all angles.
Okay.
All right,
you.
next. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Consider 2020 annual license renewals.
I think you're set.
Guys,
Yeah.
hey, it was great. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Cindy. Thanks for coming out early for all those extra meetings.
No problem.
Appreciate that. That was really productive late
Didn't
afternoon.
we just read the motion last year as
Per, and
just
per list.
per presented
list.
list? You don't have to read them all.
Yeah, no, I
And if
think,
you want to.
No, no.
you-
Unless
you
you
can-
want it.
No,
do we have a list?
Yep.
do.
So just say,
The only
guess I should
change has been that, the pizza place did not renew their liquor license.
okay.
That they're not going to, or
Not going to, they're not going to.
which
be.
one is that?
Blackstone Valley Pizza,
What the hell's that?
the Hideaway,
Hideaway?
yeah. They wrote me a letter, I have it in writing.
Okay.
That's fine.
That was just beer and wine?
Yeah.
Are you guys taking a break? Or you in your-
No, we're just
We're
doing
just
our.
We're just doing the
Wrapping
license.
up this last item on the regular agenda.
Quick question. I consult for some of these companies, is that okay?
What do you mean?
I'm just renewing their like common vics, alcohol licenses, but I consult for some of them, not for
What do you do for them?
their IT work. IT consulting.
I think you're okay as long as you disclose it
Yep,
and file it with clerk,
okay.
just to be on the safe side.
Yep. Oh, you know what? I need to do that. I'm supposed to do a blanket one, and I have to do that.
That would be a good.
Yep, you and I talked about that. I'll make sure I do that this week. Sorry. Anyway, I'll take care of it.
Excellent. Not with,
Yeah,
oh.
Yeah. No, we're just on,
We're still on.
we're on TV, just if you wanted, be careful.
We're almost done. I mean, it will be like
2 seconds.
Yeah, literally.
Consider 2008, okay, see attached list. I move to approve the 2020 annual license renewals based on this list. Exhibit A,
pending.
pending any routing slips.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We need a meeting next week, or we already have one?
Yeah, what's that about?
Yeah, we should schedule a meeting for next week.
What does your week look like?
I can't do,
I'm in the wrong month.
Am I involved? I'm not involved in that meeting, am I?
Nope, you should be good.
what is the topics?
Well, I think we're gonna have fire negotiations,
Thank you, guys.
and we'll have signing of, or whatever, if we pilot review. Do you have a day?
Tuesday?
Tuesday's fine for me.
Can't do Tuesday, I have a meeting at 6:30.
Wednesday? What about Monday?
Monday, I can do Monday.
Monday? Monday work for everybody?
Don't look at me.
Good enough time to post, right?
Yep, tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
You'll send an invite?
Is Monday okay for you?
It will be.
Oh, sorry.
Because we can't negotiate without the other person.
Yeah, I'll just have to check with the union, but I know 2 of them are working that day, so.
Okay.
That's
You need Mike to.
Okay,
All right.
What, you want to do regular time? You wanna do-
6:30. Yeah, unless you want to do earlier?
Well, that's up to you.
I
guys.
agree.
Oh,
I'm
can you
already
get back
here.
in time? Okay. 6:30 it is.
Alrighty.
Okay.
I'm gonna put another host agreement on there. I'm like,
Have at it.
I have one in the wing, so.
So we're done. Okay, let's see. I move to enter to executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, Purpose 2, to conduct non-union personnel contract negotiations, police chief and town administrator. Will reconvene in open session. Roll call vote is needed.
Tenio, aye. Second, Tenio, aye.
Real aye. Thank you.
Need the chief? Fire chief,
Wait, could you,
can you help her for once?
what did you say at the end?
Reconvene in open session.
Okay. Yes,
You did, yeah.
just was making sure we said it, even though we're not gonna tell it.
I'm not going to televise it. There's no need to.
I just want to get rid of the question.
Oh, ask, go, do it. Walk away.